Welcome to Southpod, the first and foremost podcast created to tell the story of tech innovation and scalable entrepreneurship in the American South. Southpod is hosted by John Yerian and Stanfield Gray and produced by Dig South Media. Dig South Media is the South's tech hub, the place where leading global brands connect with the region's most scalable startups. This week, Southpod welcomes Greg McKeown, New York Times bestselling author of Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. This episode was recorded live at the 2019 Dig South Tech Summit in Charleston, South Carolina. Visit digsouth.com for details and connect with us on social media at Dig South. Now, let's welcome Greg and get on with the show.
Welcome to Southpod. I am your host, John Yerian, and we are coming to you from the show itself. We're at the center of the mothership in the Gilliard, and I am pleased to be joined by Greg McKeown, whose name's pronunciation I did not qualify with him before I just said it.
It's Greg McKeown.
McKeown.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've already learned something. And the first thing I would say about Greg by way of introduction that I think I'm required to by law is that you're a New York Times bestselling author. And the interesting thing about that is I wonder how you feel about being introduced as though your ability to type 50,000 words is the most important thing about you. I mean, you are indeed an author, but how would you characterize who you are or what defines you in the cultural discourse?
Well, first of all, I could think of worse ways to be introduced.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe there are even more humane ways of doing it, but I'm comfortable with that approach. But look, I'm just trying to be useful. That's how I think about what I'm doing. I don't think about it quite so much as primarily being an author or a teacher, just trying to be useful. And this is the way that feels maybe like one of the very few ways I could actually be useful.
Well, I'm interested you characterize it that way, and the book is Essentialism, and we're going to come back to that in a moment, so listeners and viewers hang with us. But for now, this idea of being useful, is there some sort of altruistic motivation that you can see in your message, something that liberates, that activates, that you have a responsibility to share, to be useful, as you put it?
Totally. I would not be on the path I'm on. I wouldn't have written a book, let alone a book that has gone on to do well, if I hadn't first felt that life was a mission, and that my primary obligation in life is to figure out what it is, and then to live it. I think that is not one more thing to do in life. This is the work of life. What is your essential mission? And live it.
And obviously this conversation is already a demonstration of that principle, right? So there's a singularness of mindset you brought here, and in that description that is really uncluttered. Like, that was really simple in a way. And I wonder if you might indulge those who didn't have an opportunity to see it today here at the Dig South conference. Give us just a small sense of what you spoke to, how it relates to the book, and what this mission of usefulness is.
Well, I think that a lot of people listening or watching this will feel in their own life that they are often busy but not necessarily productive, that they're often stretched too thin at work or at home or beyond, that they will feel that their life sometimes feels like it's become a function of other people's agenda for them, and that their life is always being hijacked by other people's requests and initiations. And so essentialism is really the answer to that. If the problem is that we've fallen into the undisciplined pursuit of more, then this book is the antidote, the disciplined pursuit of less. And it's a key driver for how people can be successful at success in their lives, in their careers, in their entrepreneurial efforts. It's key to being able to break through to the next level, a higher level of contribution.
Okay, now hold for a moment, because we're literally seated in a tech conference.
Yeah.
We're in the event horizon of the performance of busyness.
Yeah.
We're in it. And I wonder, have you gotten lost and shown up to the wrong place, or are you, in essence, speaking to the audience that needs it the most? I mean, how do you see that as we are in an environment of, I can hear phones buzzing as I speak to you,
right,
with meaningless messages. It's happening now. Why would you come here with this message versus some sort of very obscure retreat on a mesa in New Mexico with people who are a lot calmer?
Well, I mean, first of all, I observed the phenomenon we're talking about working in Silicon Valley for 10 years. And so this is, it really was Silicon Valley that helped to give birth to the ideas that eventually became the book Essentialism. So yes, I mean, I observed both the power that comes from being disciplined in pursuing just the essentials, and I've also seen the costs to companies and individuals of falling into the undisciplined pursuit of the non-essential. So I think it's a very relevant subject for the people here and for any tech entrepreneurs today.
Now, help us quickly, perhaps with an example or something out of real life. I could see somebody listening to this and going, okay, essentialism, discipline. I remember that Steve Jobs only seemed to wear black mock turtlenecks that made his mornings faster. Perhaps that's an example of what Greg means. Can you clean that up or perhaps expand on it?
Yeah, I mean, we could have gone in almost any direction, but you mentioned Steve Jobs, who was certainly an aspirational essentialist. He was wanting, I mean, he believed that less but better was a philosophy that you could utilize not just as a sort of mantra for your life, but as a product strategy, as a tech strategy, as a business strategy. And so when he came back to Apple after 10 years absence, the company has 330 products, and he narrows that down to 10 products in 4 product categories. This was absolutely essential to the renaissance that took place at Apple, was the disciplined pursuit of less but better. He found in Johnny Ive someone who not only generally adopted that ethic, but had deep commitment to that philosophy from one of the original designers at Braun, who Dieter Rams, who was one of the people that coined the phrase less but better. And so everything that went on in that product design, right, was about careful selection of just the right things and elimination of everything else in the way the product worked. But not just the way the product worked, also which products to even produce. So you have the story that actually a lot of people don't know about with Apple, which is that they were working on the iPad before they worked on the iPhone. And they decided not just to do both, they said, we're going to stop work on the iPad so that we can work on the iPhone. And that single decision, I think, was the most valuable business decision that's been made in maybe the last 20 years. That's driven the juggernaut success that Apple has been over this last 10 years can be traced back to that decision, getting that order correct, so that they, so that's just one illustration in a business context for how essentialism works.
Well, it's very useful, and I'm glad you framed it up that way, because the wearing the same shirt or the same style of shirt, to me, is an interesting example of what I would call like a false minimalism. It is a representation of simplicity that often just leads to more and quicker clutter. Like, I've saved time with my shirt selection, now I can check more emails. Now I can make more meaningless phone calls, which to me would run counter to the philosophy you're proposing, which is it's not about reaching maximum velocity, right, of busyness through simplicity or efficiency. It's about true single-minded focus. And that'd be very different.
It is, and one more distinction, it's not just about focus, right? You could be focused on the wrong thing. So Kodak was focused on the wrong thing, ultimately, because the context changed, and even though they were the ones, they didn't just miss digital photography, they invented it, and they still missed it, which is a sort of shocking achievement. And so they had the problem of focus. They thought focus meant take a photograph of this thing, and that is what you do. And they failed to realize that focus isn't just a noun like that, it's also a verb. You have to keep on focusing. You have to keep on selecting and making sure that the thing I'm pursuing today is the most relevant thing given the context of now.
Yes, but boy, is that risky. Think about how that is so risky and scary. Think about that. If you're listening to this and wondering how to apply it, part of what we're really talking about here is commitment, is committing to something, perhaps to the exclusion of something else, the example you just shared with iPhone and iPad, and dedicating yourself to it in a way that if you make a mistake, and you mentioned Kodak, you're really wrong. You're really wrong because you have singularly committed yourself to a course. And would it be fair to assume, or has your research or your work uncovered that something about this busyness or this distribution of attention is like hedging bets? It's a way to feel safe, because if I'm doing 97 things, maybe one of them will work out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's what people, I think, are often doing, is they're trying to take a portfolio approach to their decision making. And portfolio management works in one context, right? It works when you're trying to invest your money in companies that you don't have control over. So you're just going, I don't know what they're going to do, so I'm going to hedge my bets across many, many different fronts. And so that way, if one industry fails, I've got, or one company fails, I haven't put all of my eggs into the basket where someone is not me is making the decisions. So in that context, makes sense, you should do it. But that isn't the situation when you're an entrepreneur. When you're an entrepreneur, you're the one that's making the decisions. And so in fact, if you just try and do everything that everyone else is doing, what you are inherently determining is that you will be impossible to distinguish between your competitors. So it's actually a really poor strategy. You're just going to say, okay, well, I'm in this business, I'll do everything my competitors are doing. Well, good, now no one will know why they should come to you. They just try and do everything that everyone is doing. This is mindless strategy. And in a way, what it is it's not strategy. Because in a sense, strategy is what you say no to.
Well, and you're using strong terminology here, and I appreciate that. Mindless, right? We're really pointing out that this is mistaken, and it's more than that. It's foolhardy, right? It is a foolish course of action, and yet we are surrounded by it.
Yeah.
Greg, should it follow that we're just surrounded by fools? Is that the world we're living in, and you're out here in the wilderness shouting the truth and being ignored by folks who just charge ahead because they can't see it? Or how do you explain the proliferation of what you have so succinctly diagnosed as like mindless?
Well, I think that every bubble creates mindless behavior. You go with the crowd. So whether that's the real estate bubble, or whether it was the .com bubble, or any bubble, people start to behave not because they understand a phenomenon, not because they understand the value of an asset. They start behaving simply based upon what everybody else is doing. And so it's a lot easier to live like that. It's a lot easier to simply do stuff because other people are doing it. You don't have to think and you don't have to understand deeply. And so we are now, I think, in a busyness bubble. And so yes, I think we're busy because other people are busy. And we see that's what everyone else is doing, well therefore that's what I should be doing. Everyone else is on all the social media, so I should be on all the social media. Everyone else caring about likes, I should care about likes. We get into it instead of creating space to figure out what's actually essential and letting that clarity and insight be the driver for what we're doing. But here's what I want to do. I want to switch what we're doing just for a moment. Because it's very easy to get so sort of philosophical about this, or so even at the strategy level, that the application's harder. And so...
Friends, this is me losing control of the podcast. I just want to note that, and I'm happy about it. Please go on, Greg.
But I just want to show anybody watching this that you can start at quite a safe place for applying these ideas. And it won't be safe for you, but it'll be safe for everybody else. So if you're game, are you game for it?
I'm game.
All right, I want you to just give me the first answer to the question I'm about to ask, right?
I'm ready.
What is something right now, your life or profession, that is essential to you that you're underinvesting in right now? It's essential, really important, you're underinvesting it. First answer, go.
Human capital development.
Okay, human capital development.
Being with people, my people, in a way that makes them better at what they do.
So, help me with this. What would success look like for you in that area? Like, what would you have to be doing that you would say, look, I'm not perfect in this, but I no longer feel like I'm underinvesting in it?
The simplest expression of that would be the usage of time, being with them in ways where we could work on the business instead of merely in it, right? Where we could look at what they're doing and consider alternatives or options or how they're doing it without the constraints of whatever must be done a minute from now.
So it looks like you being with them, is it one-on-one, talking to them about their work?
Yes.
So we're talking about one-on-one sessions with each of your people.
Yes.
Give it to me in hours or minutes, like per what? Like per week?
Probably 1 to 2 hours a week.
Total. Per person, total.
Would make a big difference, yes.
So you're looking for 1 to 2 hours now.
Yes.
To reassign to that essential thing. So step one in applying essentialism is to explore what is essential. And we just did that.
I've been ruthlessly indicted on camera, but yes, please go on.
Well, that's step one, right? You identified something that was essential, that you're underinvesting in. You've said what it looks like is 1 hour to 2 hours. We could do a lot more on that, but that's enough for us to move forward.
Yeah.
Step two is to eliminate a non-essential. So another question, first thought comes to mind, what is something that is non-essential to you that you're over-investing in? Quick.
Mere observation of objects in motion. So that's meetings and emails where I'm literally just watching things. Not really doing, I'm just observing it because there's something that tells me it's important for me to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So you said meetings and email. Of the two, which do you feel is currently getting is
email?
Email is the biggest differential for you.
Yes.
Like that's the place that you spend too much time.
Yes.
Without the return that you want, right? It's non-essential.
Correct.
Some of it's essential. Some of it's important, I would think, but not very much of it.
No.
So what would be ideal for you? Like how much time do you think is the right amount of time? It could be 0, but I'm guessing it's not for you. So it's a certain amount of time. What would you like to be spending?
If I could limit email to, let's say, 90 minutes in a day.
A day. You're spending more than 90 minutes a day on email?
I believe so.
How much are you spending today, average, you think?
Probably double that.
Double that.
Yeah.
So you're thinking probably 3 hours of email.
A day begins when I wake up and ends with either profound drunkenness or some other destination. So the day is not, I'm not slicing
while we're
out
looking for other non-essentials that you might be over-investing in.
Right. No, what I mean is though, so email has crept into all of the day, and the number I gave you is out of that total.
I understand. You don't have a set-aside time. Here's my 3 hours of email. This is. What you're saying is, I've wondered this myself sometimes, whether my tombstone would read, he checked email.
Yeah, he was available.
Yeah, he was available.
Yeah, he'll get back to you soon.
So it's a little tricky to work out exactly how much time you're spending from what you're telling me because it's just always with you. You're checking it all the time. You're checking it between every meeting, in every meeting.
Correct.
You're checking it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. It's just always there for you.
Right. So
let's assume that you are spending about 3 hours, and let's assume that you're also now trying to get down to 90 minutes. We've got the trade-off now.
Yep.
Because you're looking for 1 hour or 2 every week, and you've just saved between 1 hour and 2 every day, in theory.
In theory.
Now that isn't the end of our story, but that's step 2. Step 2 is to identify what is non-essential that needs to be eliminated, and we've done it.
Okay.
Step 3, and there's only 3 steps, is to build a system that's stacks the deck in your favor. There's a change that you've just identified. It's a habit change. You want to spend less time in email, more time one-on-one with the people in that you work with and who work for you. Right now, the reason you're doing what you're doing, it's my hypothesis, is that the system is stacked against you. Who created the system? Well, depending on the phone you use, right? Apple created the system. If you use Gmail, then Google's affecting your system. If you're using Microsoft, Microsoft created the system. Social media created the system. The big networks created the system so that you even have access to internet 24/7, the cellular towers. Like, this is one of the most expensive systems that's ever been built in like the history of the whole world. And that's why it's really hard as an individual to not be doing it.
Right.
I bet you never set down a goal in your life. I will check email incessantly.
No.
So that's the evidence.
No.
That's the evidence that this is a systemic challenge, a system challenge, not an intention challenge. You never intended to do this, but you're still doing it. Someone else built the system for you. What we have to do, and step 3 is really where the heart of the matter, is we have to build a system that means that you'll make this change even on days you don't feel like making the change. You've got to make this system so it's easy, effortless, frictionless, and it's going to work. Like, you're not sort of 20% sure. It's like, oh, there's no way I wouldn't do this.
Right.
That's what we're going for. And so right now, it's the opposite, because you are doing it, and you're doing it really consistently, habitually. So let's just do a few things. So, well, first, is there anything that comes to your mind that you feel like you could do that would increase your chances of executing the change you've just identified? What comes to your mind first of all?
Well, certainly. I mean, physical separation from the devices that would enable it is the simplest, right? If that barrier exists, the opportunity probably comes with it.
Okay, so let's talk about creating a sort of a Shabbat zone in your house, right? Like an area when you walk into it, the phone never comes.
Right.
So you said that you wake up in the morning, first thing your phone is there, and my goodness, you're not the only person doing that. A lot of people.
But if it weren't there, to your point, if the phone were, let's say, in a basket by the door, or in some agreed upon place, I would have a fighting chance against this huge industrialized system that is incentivized for me to be on my phone as much as possible.
Yeah, and incentivize the right answer, right? That's the reason they're spending the money they're spending is because they're making so much money doing it.
Yeah, and it's working.
So yes, so you could have, this is one, we've now stepped, one physical step forward would be to have the phone never crosses the line into your bedroom. Like, never do you walk across that line with your phone. Now that's just step 1, it's just a little piece of it. But you have a place that your phone goes at night. At first, when you do this, by the way, when you create like a non-tech zone of your house, it feels so weird to do it. But if you do it for even 1 week, by the time you're done, 1 week, you can't believe it used to be in there. You're like, why?
Do you have one? Do you have a non-tech zone or time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would never have my phone next to my bed.
That's a really strong yes. That was like, of course, yes.
Yeah. You don't want to use your phone as your alarm clock.
Right.
You want to use an alarm clock for an alarm clock.
Right.
You know, like the revenge of analog. You have a clock, and its only job is to be the clock, because then there's no email involved. So keep a space away, and even if you said, okay, after 7 o'clock at night, no technology goes in there. Okay, that's step 1. We've just got, I mean, that's just like application 1.
Right.
You are now what percentage confident that you would actually make the trade-off we're describing between email and working with your people? Honest answer.
Percentage?
Yeah.
At this, with a change like that, I would probably take it up to maybe a coin flip.
Maybe what?
Maybe a coin
50-50.
flip. Maybe 50-50, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get there with this. Okay, what can we do by way of incentive? Like, let's say for 1 week, you make the trade-off we've described. You reduce email down to 90 minutes a day.
Sure.
And you also spend this time that you're saving, at least an hour or 2 of it, one-on-one with people in your team. What's an incentive, a win that you could, just a total external reward that you would get?
Probably improved body posture would be a byproduct.
Okay, so that would be, okay, but I want like
kidding,
but
yeah.
But it probably is true, but what I mean is is like just, I mean something that's just fun for you. It's totally external. It's a social reward. It's just a
Oh,
carrot.
you just think of a thing that I would reward myself with.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so that could be, you know, I'm not sure. So this is just a prize for myself.
Yeah, what's something that's fun for you?
Okay, great. So this would be making it home in time to walk my dogs with my wife, right? That's something I enjoy, but don't always allow myself, and that I could hold up as a possibility.
Okay, so
that is not nearly good enough for Greg. I hope my wife is not
it's all right.
watching.
I'm just thinking about whether that would really incentivize you. Whether you tomorrow morning you're going to wake up and you're going to go, am I really going to make this trade-off? Oh no, I want to go out. I want it just to be something it can be small, but like just a complete reward. Yeah, it could be go eat at my favorite restaurant.
Okay, sure.
Okay, eat at your favorite
Let's do that. Let's do that.
With your wife, that's great.
Great. We know you're not impressed by that, so she can be there or not. Restaurant.
Okay, give me a penalty. You got to do this for 1 week. If you check email as you've been checking email, and you don't spend that time with your people on your team, what's an actual external penalty? I have one if you don't have one, but go.
Okay, well, running with the restaurant theme, I suppose we could punish me by forcing me to go home and eat something healthy.
You have to eat salad for the whole weekend.
That's it. Kale.
Kale for the weekend.
That sounds miserable.
Yeah, that's good. I'll give you another one too, right? I'll give you the $100 challenge.
Okay.
$100 challenge looks like this. You go home today, you get a $100 bill from somewhere, you go to the bank or you have one already, you pin it up in your home. You tell everyone what it means. You say, I, for 1 week, am going to check my email, and you can check this on your phone, right? Like, you know, you can monitor this, no more than 90 minutes a day. And instead, I'm going to take that time and I'm going to spend an hour or two extra in one-on-one conversations and with people in my business. If I do that successfully for 1 week, that $100 stays there. If I fail to do that by the end of the first week, I rip up the $100 and throw it away. Yeah, it just got real, didn't it?
Well, I'm interested in two things. One, the power of the declaration, which you were careful to include, but I'm declaring this to others, right?
Yeah, that's part of this
There's
too,
a social accountability layer.
That's right.
And what you've represented by way of penalty is not some sort of gamification between you and me. It's pure loss.
It's pure loss.
It's pure loss.
Yeah, because what the research shows is that what we used to believe is that people were motivated by basically two things, right? It's fear of failure, of loss, pain, or desire for something pleasurable, right? Pain or pleasure. But actually, the deeper you get into it, the more you realize that even the things that are pleasure-based are often just trying to get away from the pain of not having that thing.
Right, right.
So really what we found, and it's a little depressing in some ways, but is that we're really motivated by avoidance of pain.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, in fact, according to some specific research that was done, it's 6 times stronger than a reward.
Yeah.
And so the $100 thing, it's just like, it's just pure loss.
Yeah.
It's just nothing but a simple, concrete pain if you don't make the change.
Right.
So how do you feel about it?
I'm about this whole experience in general?
No, the $100 challenge.
The $100 challenge. It's very interesting.
Yeah, are you willing to take it?
I have a commitment to you to be honest in this.
Yeah.
Right? And you can feel that. And it might work better for the podcast for me to say yes.
No,
and you can feel the hesitation.
Much better for you to be honest.
Yeah, you can feel it. Because you're a perceptive guy and you can see the hesitation. So, yeah, there's a barrier there for me. And perhaps that is a signal that it might be effective. Because, like, the stakes are a little bit higher than I want it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because so far it's all just talk.
Right, and
because you're sitting there, sure, I'll do that.
It's a little uncomfortable. Now, losing the $100 is it means something to me. The declaration to others of what I intend to do and then not making good on it is I think more significant for me. Those in combination are now having me think, well, I would really have to do it
Yeah.
And that chills me to the bone, Greg.
Yeah, because now we're not talking anymore. It's actually commitment.
Okay.
So here's the thing. This is now essentialism. Now we're talking about essentialism. Because the easiest thing in this whole world is to talk about what a priority, the prioritization that we believe we have or we want to have, as if talking about it is sufficient. But doing it is so much harder. To say, well, of course, the people in my business are more important than just checking email all the time. Of course, that's my value. Yeah, but what we do is our real value. What our prioritization, what we actually do in practice is, now I'm giving you a hard time here. I'm not really meaning to do that. But the $100 challenge is such a concrete way of getting us straight to the crux of it.
No, I love it, and I love that you did that, and I don't want anyone else to hijack the podcast like that, so don't hear it like an endorsement. But I love that you did that, and I think it's so interesting, and we'll wrap in just a minute, but we started out kind of playing with this idea that I would introduce you as an author, which is great, like a guy that wrote something down. When in reality, what we're talking about, comprehension of essentialism, of what you are here to present, is only in its performance. It is being that way. It is not knowing it. Like me reading the book and knowing about it has no value, right? Me being it or having a relationship to it in action, in its performance or actuality, has directional significance, and it catalyzes things and it creates outcomes, and I can tell that's what moves and motivates you. That's the usefulness you want to share, is not, I'm a guy who wrote a book and you should know about what I know. It's you should do or behave or be different. Is that fair, or did I project
Yes,
that?
I think it's absolutely right. There's two ways of thinking about essentialism. One is one more thing to do. One more thing, okay, we're going to know about that, we're going to do it, maybe add that into my life, and then it's something. The second way is it's something we become. We become an essentialist. And that's exactly the challenge, is to build a system that makes it so that you're operating as an essentialist. Even as really what you're doing at the beginning of that process is you're sort of pretending to be an essentialist using a system to get you there. At some point you get to the place where it's completely obvious. Email isn't the driver. Spending time with your people is the driver. The values have actually become who you are. But until that point, you have to try and change the system. I'm going to still not let you off the hook just yet, because I didn't get a clear yes or a no to this. I got a yes, this would really do something to me.
Well, but if I'm not really going to do it, I'm not going to say yes to it.
Yeah.
And this is the heart of it, right? And if you're listening and you're still with us or watching, this is the heart of it. It's not what you talk about, but what you're willing to implement, and the recognition that whatever you're doing, what you exposed earlier with email, I'm doing it because I want to do it. There's something in there that's operating on me, that's motivated by this system, right? All these powerful forces that are stacked against me, and I'm co-creating it.
Yeah,
right?
there's internal reasons for it and external.
And the piece of this that we haven't talked about, and perhaps we will if we get you back on, is if I make good on my intentions, now I have to kind of know where I want to go. Now I've got to make choices. If I'm really going to spend time with my people in the way that I claimed that I wanted to, Greg, something would have to happen. I'd have to have something to say to them, and it would have to make a difference.
But what you've just said, which is I think great, is that you're bringing together.
I think great. I appreciate that. It means a lot.
Is you're bringing together other concerns, other reasons that would actually keep you from making this decision. Which is if I'm really doing it, I don't know what my plan actually would be. I don't actually have a clear sense of it. So we'd have to figure that out.
And I think that's critical.
The $100 is bringing you to that point. You're going, okay, so now I have to do it. All of the reasons, what your mind is doing, it feels like in our lives when we set an intent that we get all of these obstacles that suddenly come up. And it's like our mind is being unhelpful. But our mind is being very helpful because it's presenting us with obstacles, but each obstacle is the stepping stone we must pass through in order to get to the other side.
Right.
So every obstacle that's coming to your mind right now isn't a pushback on me, it's your mind going, well, what are you going to do about that? And what are you going to do about that? And we must solve each one in order to get to a point where the system is now completely formed and built.
Yes, and listeners, the pause you heard from me earlier, like, Greg's a lot smarter than me. It would be a lot easier to push back on you. There's a lot of ways to do that I'm trained and socialized and frankly quite good at, and that isn't the problem. As you've just identified, is I'm sort of stuck with me over here and what I will do, and that is a vastly deeper challenge than thinking of something mildly witty to say to you to misdirect this. So let's do this. Let's do this, because we've got to get you out of here, and it's been a pleasure. And I really appreciate this exercise, because I think it's demonstrated for our audience where we are in this. It's not like a book with, tricks and tips and techniques. It's not like one weird trick to lose belly fat. We're talking about a discipline and a habit.
Yeah.
And I want you to know, and I want our listeners and viewers to know, that I'm going to find a $100 bill. I'm going to put it up somewhere. I'm going to declare this, and I'm going to get off of my email, or I'm going to tear it up. And I'm uncomfortable with that, and I'm going to do it.
I first of all just congratulate you for doing it. And I really do, because I know that even as you say that, there's several other items that you're like, I don't know what to do about this, or this, or this. But as those, here's what I want you to do after the podcast, is write down every obstacle, and for each obstacle say, okay, well, what am I going to do about each of those things? Because what we've identified is that we're halfway through building the system. And as you build the system fully, you'll know when you're there, because you'll just go, there is no way at all I won't be making this change now. It's so stacked in your favor. It's like the change is essentially done right here, one in the building of the system. This is the power of essentialism in practice.
The healing has begun. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you, Greg McKeown. Close?
You nailed it.
I did it. Who is indeed an author, but much more than that. And it's very easy to discover what he's up to online. Is there anything you want to plug or any URL you want to share?
No, not at all, no.
Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you here. And listeners, please consider, if you felt for me at any point in this conversation, there might be something for you to look at.
Yeah.
And the book would be a terrific start. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.